Hello, and welcome to our Masonic Homes Kentucky Resident Panel Webinar, where we will be talking about today what life is like for the people that live in the active lifestyle communities on our Louisville campus. My name is Chanda Day, and I am the Sales Director of Independent Living for Masonic Homes Kentucky. I will be the moderator for today's discussion. We have 5 residents with us from our Miralea and Meadow communities, who will be sharing what their life has been like as they chose to live in our active lifestyle communities and tell you about what life is like for them today. For this first question, I would like to get everybody's thoughts. And I thought we'd start down with Natalie down there. Tell me, Natalie, what is the most important thing that you would like to share with people about living here at Meadow?
The thing that I like best about living at Meadow are there are really 2 things. First of all, the people that I've met here, because they're very friendly. It's been very easy to become acquainted. And then also the activities that are provided, because that was what I was looking for, meeting other people and having things to do.
Okay, thank you, Natalie. Mrs. Miller, what about you? What do you think's the thing that you would like to share most with other people?
I think for us, at least for me, and I think my husband also, the most important thing in considering moving here was the value that you receive as far as knowing what the life care plan is. We made our decision based on that, and it gives you a certainty. There are so many people at our age that don't have a plan about when they can't take care of themselves. And for that reason, knowing that there is a plan here, knowing if this happens, A, then B is what's going to follow, and C could follow that. And it's very comforting. It's very comforting to have that and know that you're not going to be in a crisis if something does happen.
I'm sure that's very assuring. Mr. Miller, do you have anything in addition to add?
Well, normally I say Martha speaks for me, but I'd like to say that the biggest surprise in a way, and one thing that sort of drew us here because we had an inkling of this, was the really good friends that we've made here. We've made some wonderful friends here, and although we've only lived here for a 1.5 to 2 years, we feel like we've known some of these people all of our lives, but we had never met them until we moved here. So we've really been pleased with our interaction with the rest of the populace.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. That's some great opinions. Ruby, what has been the thing that I guess you would like to share most?
Mostly I agree with Mr. Miller. The friends that I have met at my stage of life that I would never expect to meet and have these dear friends. They're like family. I can't imagine not knowing them. Also, the friendliness, the ease of moving in and transitioning, the warmth, and it really is like one big happy family.
Okay. Mr. Conway, what would you like to share about living here that you think people would really need to hear?
Well, I think just the comfort that of knowing that you've got this great campus to share, and the friendliness of the people. It's just nice to know that when you get ready to reach the end of your working career, that you've got a place to relax, and you still have the activities available to you, and it's the comfort of knowing that you. I had a different situation. My wife was suffering from Alzheimer's at the time, and had been for a few years. I really, at that time, wasn't ready to move into the assisted living facility at that time. After a few years, I had to have some help, and so she moved into Sally's Garden, and I moved into Miralea, and been adapted very easily. the friendliness, the staff, and the beauty of this campus is just tremendous, and it's a good place to retire. And still there are enough activities to keep you active, don't let you get stale, and so it's been a great, I've been here for almost 8 years. I moved in shortly after it opened. I had my apartment already. We were planning on moving in together, my wife and I were, but until it was, but it wasn't finished at the time. At that time, she had needed extra care. So anyway, I've been very happy here. Great staff, very, very, very great residents here. Just a beautiful place. And I've been very happy here.
Wonderful. Were there anything that were like a surprise when you moved in, like that you really benefited from that you thought you would not?
Well, the biggest surprise was the openness of the people. When I moved in, I expected it to be very isolated, and it just wasn't my expectation of a retirement community. But to see all the activities and the friendliness of the people, right away, they were already several residents in Miralea when I moved in. But the first time I went down for breakfast, everyone come up and said hello, and we got just the openness. And that was really a surprise. I was very, very, very happy surprise.
Wonderful. That's a wonderful surprise. Did anybody else have anything that really was a benefit or something that really was enriching that was a surprise that you didn't think about?
Well, I had never, ever lived alone. I went from my family to my marriage, and after 63 years of marriage, was quite used to that. So I was a little nervous about being on my own, and wondered what that would be like coming here. But there was no problem whatsoever, because as everyone has said, you made friends immediately, you feel part of a family, and that was important to me.
Okay. Wonderful. We talk with a wide variety of people that are looking at independent living communities, and I'm curious, what prompted everyone to start thinking about, an independent living community? Like Joe, you said your wife, was having some health issues. Ruby, what prompted you to start thinking about Miralea?
Well, my husband and I were thinking of downsizing. We weren't really thinking of an independent community like this, and we were thinking of a patio home maybe, but we got an invitation in the mail, living within a mile of here anyway, and we decided to go to a luncheon where we met some wonderful marketing people. And this was even before they had broken grounds. I actually gave them a deposit at that first luncheon, and my husband said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, we can get it back, but it sounds just perfect, and it's right in our area, and we only have one child, and we did not want to be a burden, and I've never regretted it."
Wonderful.
Never. My only regret was he passed away a month before I had to move in, but he was with me all through the planning.
Okay, great. So, Mr. and Mrs. Miller, what prompted you to start looking at independent living communities of the Meadow?
Well, for one thing, we have wonderful children, but we did not want them to pick out a place for us when the time came for us to give up having our own condo. So we wanted to pick our own place, and that's what we ended up doing.
Okay.
And that was one thing that prompted our move to this kind of facility, number one, and to pick this particular facility, number two.
Mm-hmm. Mrs. Miller, it looks like you might have something to add to that.
Well, I recall that conversation we had. We'd been to a book club or something, and someone just commented, last week we put Mother and Dad somewhere.
Oh,
and
wow.
when we were going home, I said, you know what? I don't want our kids putting us anywhere. But I think the conversation we had, we went to a forum in Sarasota where we would go in the winter. And friends of ours had lived in this particular place on the bay, Sarasota Bay Club. And we visited them and thought, oh, that's really nice. And then we looked at Miralea and said, no, we're not ready, you know. But whenever we started thinking about it, neither of us had long-term health care, which of course is not as great as we think it is even now. People do have it. So we started just thinking about the cost if both of us had to be in assisted living or a nursing home. And totaling that up, you know, we thought, gee whiz, how long does an investment portfolio last under that kind of fire, you know?
Sure.
So when this life care plan, and I keep pushing it because it's a wonderful thing, you know, that the circumstances, financial circumstances of which you can move from layer to layer. And you realize, you know, I can do that without breaking the bank. And so that was the reason we really started seriously looking. And for whatever reason, I don't know how we got on your call list, but they called us and invited us. And that was the beginning of it. You know, we started going to events that they were having.
You know, one of the advantages of our active lifestyle communities here on our Masonic Homes Kentucky campus is that we do have every layer of care that you might need as you get older. And that is part of that's what makes us a life care community, and we are the only true life care community in the state of Kentucky. Was that a consideration for any of the others
Yes.
here?
Yes.
I want to
Yeah,
say
one second.
that I know firsthand that although that was one of the main reasons that we picked Miralea was the life care plan, my husband ended up in a nursing home for a year before my apartment was ready. I could not even have him in Swope because I didn't live here yet. And I know what that cost amounted to for that year, like $100,000. And so this life plan is absolutely a saver. And I also appreciate it because it is not part of the same building. They are separate even though they're on the campus, and that makes a big, big difference. It's not depressing at all, knowing back there is some place to take care of us.
That's great. Natalie, you were going to add something there.
Well, yes, as someone else said, we went through quite an illness of my husband's where my children were a huge help, and I just could not put the burden of my being in that position as I got older on them. And so that was one of the main reasons why I received a postcard and came to a little affair here, and it immediately appealed to me as this is the path that I wanted to take, and I've been very satisfied with that decision.
Wonderful, wonderful. So the savings that they are alluding to, if someone is a resident in our independent living, if they should need the higher levels of care, you do get those at a significant discount, which is a huge component of our life care agreement. When people are looking at a next step of maybe leaving their home, there's lots of considerations. Were there any other considerations that that you guys thought over? When you were thinking about different communities, like comparing, did you compare any place else, I guess, to here?
I only checked out one other place, and I just felt that it couldn't compare to what the Masonic Home offered.
Okay, thank you, Natalie. Mrs. Miller, did you have anything? Did you guys think about any other places?
Yes, briefly, and it was very brief.
Okay.
We had friends who were in another facility, and just going and visiting with them, the care seemed to be appropriate, but we ate lunch with them a couple of times, and that really discouraged us. So, and then we drove through a couple of other places, and it just wasn't right. We could have stayed where we were for several years God willing, you know, that something hadn't happened. And it still could live out by ourselves in. But we wanted to be proactive and do what we needed to do now. And then be able to enjoy this beautiful facility. This is wonderful. I wouldn't want to move in and have to stay in my room and not be able to enjoy it. So we think we acted in other words, we struck when the iron was hot, and we've had a wonderful 2 years here.
That's great. And that's one of the things we share with people when we talk to them is that you want to come to an independent living community when you can enjoy all of the activities and everything that, you know, being here offers. You're basically just picking up your life and bringing it to this community. So we often hear from folks that they say, oh, I'm not ready yet to take that step. Joe, what advice would you have for somebody that says, I'm not ready yet, you know?
Well, I don't think you ever know when you're ready, and I think it's, you need to be, like was mentioned earlier, you need to be proactive and stay ahead of it. I really wasn't, I was still working when my wife and I signed up for Miralea. That was when the market team first opened, before the ground was broken, as a matter of fact. And we had decided that we'd reached a point in life where we wanted to kind of take it easy, and I didn't want to be doing chores around the house any longer. You know, it was a little harder to crawl under the sink to fix a leak and that kind of thing. So we were thinking about it, and I never considered any other place, knowing I was a little ahead of the game as far as Masonic Home was concerned, because I was aware of what was here. And at that time, my wife hadn't been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, but we were here when at the dedication of Sally's Garden, when that opened. And my wife was very compassionate and that kind of thing, and she was so pleased with Sally's Garden without ever realizing that she was going to end up there. And so that was well before Miralea was even on the drawing board. But when by the time it reached that point, she'd been diagnosed, and I knew that something was going to have to be done. So it really wasn't a shopping spree for me as far as the home was concerned. I didn't consider any other place than here, and that was because of the level of care from independent living all the way to skilled care, and that's what tempted me, and I just.
It sounds like it was a great fit.
Very easy transition to make, and for the same reasons given earlier there, I didn't want my kids to have to look out for us. We were independent all of our life, and we decided to come on into Miralea. So
Well, thank you, Joe. Do any of you others have any thoughts of?
I do.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Ruby.
Well, I have several friends, and it's such a good example. If you think you're not ready, by the time you think you are ready, you are over ready.
That's a
and
great
I
thought.
fully believe that living at Miralea, and I know my friends feel the same, has added years to our life. You don't have the stress, you don't have the aggravation. I wish I could get through to people. They don't want to leave their homes. It's just material things. Mm-hmm. This is worth so much more to have friends around you all the time. Or even not great friends, even acquaintances that you can speak mm-hmm. with, and there's always somebody around. Please don't wait till you think you're ready. Do it before.
That's great. That's a great advice. Great advice. Anyone, Natalie, would you have any advice for somebody who says, I'm not ready yet?
No, I have to totally agree that you'll probably never be ready if you wait for that moment to come. but it was such a freeing experience that I was very happy. And I know that my children were very happy
Yeah.
because they have thanked me so many times for making the decision that I did.
That's a wonderful thing. I'm sure it warms their heart as well as yours. So I think one of the things that people often will cite, that they're not ready, is that they think that they still have to hold on to that, their home and all of those things in there. And Natalie, it really struck me with what you just said about, you said it was a freeing decision.
Very freeing.
Would you care to speak maybe to what was that downsizing process like?
It was not fun. I don't think it is for anyone because you have all these things that you've had forever. My husband and I, fortunately, in moving, had downsized twice from the house with the children and all of that. So I was somewhat ready for it, but still there was a lot of adjustments to make with possessions. But I'm happy that I did it. I really am.
Great. Mr. and Mrs. Miller, what advice would you have for somebody about the downsizing process?
Well, we made a decision to move 2 years before Meadow was up and running. So we had 2 years to work on that, but I realized that if we waited till the last minute, it was going to be unfortunate. So every day during that 2 years that I didn't get rid of something was a day lost.
It's a great perspective.
Fortunately, we had 5 daughters and several grandchildren who could take a lot of things that we didn't want, but they could use. So that was a big help. Of course, we ended up having to, give away a lot of things to different charities, and some things we just had to throw away. And some of these things that I got rid of, I had to approach 2 or 3 times before I made the decision, it's got to go today. But once you get to the mental state where you think, I've got to downsize now, then you can make those moves. But I was really pleased that we had the 2 years that we had to get ready for that and to work on downsizing.
Yeah.
So that was, nibbling is so much easier than gobbling.
That's a great perspective right there.
Yeah.
Mrs. Miller, did you have any other thoughts on that, or?
Well, we had actually downsized twice already, and but we still ended up with a 2,300 square foot condo that also had a 2,300 square foot basement below it, unfinished at that time. I'd really gotten rid of a lot of things but there were certain things I just couldn't part with. And Jean had the same problem. We could probably have used 3 storage areas for everything he wanted to bring. Well, we might need this, but most people, when you talk with them, they gave up silver. Try to give kids silver. They don't want they don't want to have to clean it either, And the china, all of that. So what we say is, you know what? I don't think there's a thing that I gave up that I have in the last 2 years said, gosh, I wish I had kept that. I really need that right now. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
They're just things, and although there's a huge sentimental attachment to a lot of them, I was just thinking when he said every day I was going to get rid of. I'm just thankful that I wasn't one of the things he got rid of.
No, that's just like what Ms. Zackham said earlier. You pick up the relationships and the people. It seems like that's a pretty good trade-off.
Well, you don't need half the things that you bring, and half the things that I brought I have not used in 8 years. And it's true, the kids don't want silver and they don't want china, but so what? I'm still trying to downsize and give away. So you just don't need it, no matter how small or how large your unit is. You won't use it, that's all.
Well, great. I bet it's great advice for people that are still trying to wrap their head around that process. Changing lanes a little bit, I'd like to talk about the involvement here, because these are active, active lifestyle communities, and the involvement in the programs and classes and amenities that we have. Natalie, would you care to speak about like some of the things that are fun to be involved in, and what are some of the favorite things that you have enjoyed?
Well, I made up my mind I would probably try everything, and I have for the most part. Mostly, I had been very active in exercising at the Y, so exercise is very important to me, and so I have tried all of the classes. We have some wonderful instructors, and that has been very satisfying to me. I felt like I needed to exercise my brain, and so I decided to join Spanish, and I have really enjoyed that. So there's something for everyone. I mean, we have art and pottery and many, many things that, some of which I've tried and decided weren't for me, but the opportunity is there. Book club is another one that's very important. So I have been very pleased by what has been offered and have thoroughly enjoyed anything that I have really tried.
Great. Has it?
Another thing, it's a great way to meet people.
Oh, that's
because I
exactly.
have met people from Miralea that I would have never known, other than they were in one or the other of the classes. And even here, you just don't see certain people other in certain situations, but you'll meet them in the exercise class. So again, that has been a wonderful way to get to know people.
Wonderful, thank you. And then I know the Millers have even hosted a sing-along here in the courtyard. What have you guys, enjoyed the most, or what activities have you?
Well, you'll have to have another whole program on what Martha's been involved with, but I have done some Spanish classes, and I enjoy the writing class. It's W-R-I-T-I-N-G, not writing, R-I-D-I.
Oh, okay.
And the thing that's given me the most pleasure, though, is I have volunteered at Sproutlings, which is the preschool just across the campus. And I volunteered. I was in the four-year-old class, which Martha says is my maturity level. So I really fit in well there, and I really did enjoy that. And, of course, the coronavirus put a squelch on that deal, but I have really enjoyed being involved with the Sproutlings organization, and those kids are just wonderful.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Mrs. Miller, anything you would like to, that activities that have really been something that was really touching to you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I don't want people to get remember the show Love Boat?
Yes.
And there's this little woman running around
Cruise
signing
director
everybody
Julie.
up for
Yeah.
classes and all that. And they get that idea. Some lady asked me at an event here one time, she said, I guess they keep you really busy here with all the things that they do. And I said, oh, it's not that kind of thing. Don't mistake it for the Love Boat. They're organized classes, and you're also free to organize on your own, which is wonderful. But I became just, I just was beamed up by the pottery. I had a pottery class years ago when I was teaching. We had an artist in residence, and he worked with the art classes in pottery. And I did that, but then I didn't have time. So I went back to it and loved it, absolutely loved it. And I also paint, pretty much on my own, but right now I've got my easel set up in my living room.
Okay, so outside of the studio, we have the art studio here in Meadow.
Yeah.
They've moved some things into your own place.
So they're and it's there if you want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, no one's forcing you to. So
I think that's a great perspective. Thank you for that thought, because that really speaks to the level of commitment to individuality that you have, and independence that you have here.
right. If you want privacy, you can have all the privacy in the world. And if you don't, you can have all the friends in the world.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Ruby,
Well, it's just as Martha said. There's everything if you want to do it, and if you want to just sit in your apartment, there's that too. But there's bridge, there's mahjong, we have a pool, Meadow has a movie theater, there's a book club, there's all the exercises you want. I just walk the halls sometime for exercise, but if you want to get into any activities, that's where you meet and become friends. If you don't, if you're content by yourself, nobody pushes you into anything. Our art class is because of the virus, we can't do a lot of things, and we're slowly trying to open up. But there's space to breathe. You just like anything else, you can do as much as you want, and we're all welcome to do what we want. So you don't have to do a thing,
Okay.
but it's best if you do because you see people.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. Joe, has anything resonated with you, especially that you've been involved with while you lived here?
Well, not particularly. There's so much going on. It's hard to keep up with it all. I got involved with we had a poker party
Okay.
that organized over at Miralea when I first moved in. I was involved in that, and then we had a writing class and several other classes, and I've kind of picked up a few and still do, and some on our own. We had a derby party that was organized over at Miralea that was not part of the activities, the organized activities. We had a couple of Mardi Gras parties, and those kind of things were organized there with just the residents that were very interesting, and I enjoyed. But I do a lot of reading, and I don't belong to the book club, or I didn't want to give reports, so I don't mind reading, but I didn't care about giving reports. But I was overwhelmed with the classes and the activities that are available. It's like Martha said, that pick what you want and enjoy those. And it's really great to have the opportunity to have them there. And I found it from one to the other. Maybe you want to attend one for a while and another one for a while, and that kind of exercise class, or that kind of thing. So it's nice to have the opportunity to have those available and take advantage of them when you feel like it.
Yes, and it's nice that you spoke to the opportunities that you have that are organized, internally amongst the residents, in addition to those
Sing along.
organized with the staff. What would you guys like the prospective residents to know about the interactions that you have with the staff here? What would you have to share about the staff at our Miralea and Meadow communities? Joe, what would you?
On the staff? Well, it's very very close. We get as close to the staff as we do the residents. You get them on a personal basis, and they share with you. And a lot like we were talking about the food earlier. I like my eggs a certain way, and I can call down to the restaurant now to place my order, and I don't have to tell them how to fix my eggs.
They know your way.
And it's a very close relationship with the staff, not just the staff, but the development office and the whole operation here at the Masonic Home. It's a personal, it gets to be a personal relationship.
Well, thank you for that. Ms. Ruby, would you have anything to add about?
It's like Joe wrote my script for me. We're very close. Tammy is a friend that I would never, ever, ever have had, and that goes back 10 years. The staff feels like family, and we know when they're sick, and we know when they lose people, and even the housekeeping staff, when you get used to your same housekeeper, you talk to them. You have to remember they're human beings. They're not your servants. And when you treat them the way you would a true friend, that's what you get back, and we're very close to our staff.
That's wonderful to hear. Thank you for that. Mr. Miller?
Well, as far as activities are concerned, one thing I really like to do is walk. And this is a beautiful campus. As a matter of fact, I've never seen a campus that rivals this one, except for maybe a university campus. And certainly not one with, independent living facility on it. So I really like walking this campus. We have a plethora of sidewalks here, and also I have a bicycle that I can ride around this 82 acres, and don't have to worry about getting run over, and don't have to worry about stoplights, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really, really a plus for me to get outside and be able to be active.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Natalie, would you have anything to add about the interactions with the staff here?
They are so very, very friendly, and I agree with Ruby that you almost feel they're part of your family for many of them. And they're always so cheerful, which, we have our good days and our bad days, but that means a lot. It really does. I can't say enough good things about the staff, really.
That's wonderful, wonderful to hear. Moving, one of the most important considerations that we hear from people is about dining and the dining operations and options of a community. I would love to get a little feedback from you guys about what the dining is like here in the restaurants. So, Mrs. Miller, what do you have?
Well, first of all, we have a restaurant. A lot of facilities have dining rooms, and when you go down, you have like 2 choices for an entree, and you don't really have a lot of choice. That's the dining room facility. We have a restaurant. We have a menu that looks just like a restaurant menu, and so it's considerably different, and we like that. We like being able to have multiple choices of what you want. As far as it's difficult, we are in the process of doing a survey of our residents here at Meadow about what they would like to see changed about the menu, or changed about the presentation, or whatever, any of that. And so we're not necessarily in control, but we have an input to it.
That's great.
And our director is constantly working with the staff in the cooking area to try to get to the point. We work on consistency, that when you order this item this week and it's great, that next week you can order it and it's going to be great instead of not so great. So it is, I think, this is my opinion, that it's the most personal service that we have is food.
Absolutely, I would agree.
It's and it's all as a result, because we feel so personal about, are we a good cook? Yeah, we're really good cooks. They can't beat my mother's, this sort of thing. So you have to keep a proper perspective about the food, and know that everyone doesn't have the same likes and dislikes. And it's a tough thing to operate the restaurant, any restaurant. How many restaurants do you go to that everything on it you want to eat? No.
Right.
There are just certain things that you want. So they constantly work on improving, and I think that's a plus, a big plus. And they listen to you if you have a concern. If you get something and it's not to your liking, they just say, "Oh, I'll take this off of your bill. Would you like to order something else?" And so it can be disturbing for some people because they have certain expectations of food and they're not very flexible. But if you are open and flexible to change, it's okay. It's fine.
Thank you. While we're down here, Natalie, do you have anything to add on that?
Someone who lives here said to me early on, I don't have to shop for it, I don't have to prepare it, and I don't have to clean up after it. And for the most part, I'm very satisfied, and days that I'm not, I tell myself those 3 sentences.
That is a great perspective.
It is a great relief not to have to think about, what am I going to fix for dinner? I'm going to go down, I'm going to look at a menu, and I'm going to choose something from that, you know. I like that, I really do.
Great. Well, so we have two restaurants, one in our Meadow community and one in our Miralea community, but residents can go back and forth. Ruby, what thoughts would you have on our
I have a little different
dining?
situation. I'm vegetarian and I don't eat shellfish, so I've gotten to the point where I don't mind it. I do a lot of my cooking. What I do eat is very good, and if I order something, they will say, you can't have that, Miss Sockham, because it's made with this or it's made with that. I think they try hard, and our chefs will not work on the same meal every time. So in other words, you have however many chefs are in the kitchen doing their own interpretation of that food. So it might not taste the same, but it's the same food. So people have to realize that. And it's like going to a restaurant. If you don't like something, you won't order it again, or you'll talk to them about it. They're very willing. What I like is my apartment is very small, and when I have my family, of course not because of the virus now, we can't, but they do a lot of wonderful catering, and I can order what I want partly, and I can do some of it myself, or they can do the whole catering, and we have private rooms, and I don't have to worry whether they're well fed or not. So it's adequate. It's, as Martha said, every individual has a different sense of what they're getting. And if you don't like one thing, you'll love the next thing. So you have to realize it's just a restaurant that you have all the time instead of occasionally.
Excellent, excellent. Joe, any input on the restaurants here? Anything that's your favorite?
Well, I came through a couple of evolutions on the food bit. My wife was a great cook, and I was spoiled, I guess. And she was about 5 years before we moved into Miralea, and she had lost her ability to cook, and we did a lot of restaurant meals, and so it was a big improvement when I moved into Miralea with the meals that were served here. And I'm not saying I'm not always like everything on the menu, but I think they do a great job with it, and it was a big improvement over going to a restaurant every night. So yeah, I think the staff, I think they do a great job with the cooking over there. And like you say, if you don't like what's on the plate, they'll change it for you, and it's been great. So yeah, it's a.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. Thank you for that feedback from all of you guys. I am going to turn now to our partners who are watching for questions that might be submitted, and doesn't look like we have any at this point from our virtual attendees. Okay. Well, I guess I will kind of we'll start down here at the end and, kind of gather any last thoughts that maybe something I didn't touch on that you guys would like to share. Miss Natalie, is there anything that you would like to share that maybe we didn't touch on?
I think most everyone that I have met who has moved in here has been very happy, as I have been, and I can only say when your prospective people have an opportunity to come and look us over on site, I would welcome them.
Thank you, yes, yeah. Mr. and Mrs. Miller, any final thoughts of anything that you'd like to share that?
One thing that I think of is that I find when I speak with people, they're very apprehensive about when you go down to eat, like, do do you sit by yourself? Well, it's your choice. It's when you're on a cruise ship, some cruise ships you go and you have a table assigned to you and you sit with the same people for the whole 10 days. And if you aren't happy with those people, that's a sad 10 days. But you can sit by yourself. You can have already made arrangements to sit with friends and got a reservation. You may have company coming and you've had, from outside, you've got a reservation. But in the beginning, you learn, particularly if you're by yourself. I remember Natalie sat with us a couple of times when we had first moved in and everything. But it didn't take long for this group of ladies, 10 or 12 ladies, to kind of get together. And they meet in the lobby now, and, well, is anybody else coming? Okay, we need a table for 5, or we need a table for 7. And it makes you feel so good to see that happen. Wonderful. Because heaven knows, if we're in a couple state, and I think they're about, 65% in Meadow are couples, that may not always be true. And to know that we've got girlfriends, and Gene has fellows he walks with, and is involved with, that there's someone there, to
Absolutely.
help you fill a vacuum that occurs.
That's a wonderful, very comforting thought.
It's great. Someone told me one time, I've never met anybody that I really disliked. Now she said, but I've met some people that I know as well as I want to. So you have that choice. You can work on a friendship and nurture it, but I think people should not move into any facility, Meadow, Miralea, anywhere else, and just say, I have arrived. It's time for everybody to get to know me. And I had a plan. Every night when we went down, I met someone. Before I could forget it, I went upstairs and wrote down their name, what they did, where they were from, just something to remind me who they were, to try to learn people's names. And you have to work on it. But I love this place. I really, really do.
We can tell, and that's great advice. Thank you for that. And Natalie, Ruby, any final anything we might have?
Miralea is very, very warm with new resident, with anybody. We change, we can come over here to Meadow, we can stay where we are and vice versa. But with new people especially, we try and welcome them into a group. Now, sometimes a couple will prefer sitting by themselves, and that's fine too. We'll chat on the way in or out. But there does not seem to be a problem. Those that are shyer, somehow we can feel that, and we try and take them and welcome them into our tables. Also, if you're ill, they will deliver your food, and right now you have the option of picking up your food or having it delivered. Sometimes you just don't feel like going down and being with the people. You can pick it up and take it back. So I don't think that should be a problem. It's the same problem as worrying about meeting new people. That's not a problem at Miralea. We're very warm and close. And I think everybody would feel it the minute they're there.
Thank you. Joe, anything that you'd like to share that maybe we haven't touched on?
Well, no, just as a total, I think if during your lifetime you made a number of moves, and this is probably my last move. But to know that you're here under a life contract with this beautiful campus and all these people and part of your family, from independent living all the way to the Swope Center, it's just comforting to know that you're here, and there's no worry about it. It's just it's hard to describe, hard to explain, but it takes a lot of pressure off, and it makes life worth living. Not just, you didn't come here just to die and go away, but it's a life in its own right here for the rest of your lifetime. And know that you've got people coming and going, that friends that you knew in the beginning are gone, but new people are coming on campus. And I think it's nice to know that progression is going on, and this place is here for us and those that are going to need it later. And I just think it's a great place to be. I'm satisfied and know just about everybody on campus. I hope I get to meet them all. But anyway, it's just one big happy family.
Thank you, thank you for that great perspective, and thank you to all of our residents for joining us today, and for all of your stories and sharing and your thoughts. And I know I find it enlightening, and I hope everyone that has attended our webinar today has also found it enlightening. Thank you for attending. If you would like to schedule a visit to Miralea or Meadow, which are our active lifestyle communities, the senior living counselors, Tammy Brewer, Mary Ayers, and myself, we would love to set up something for you. You can give us a call. Thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to talking with you soon.